Welcome to another episode of the I'm F.I.N.E podcast, where a couple of knuckle-dragging veterans unpack the world of mental health as unprofessionally and informally as possible. I am Eric Peterson.
And I'm Brad Stosiek.
And today's episode is about sharing some of the amazing and lesser-known stories about veterans throughout history and throughout our world in an effort to prepare ourselves for Veterans Day. We are going to talk about Henry Lincoln Johnson and the Harlem Hellfighters, Marina Raskova and the Soviet Night Witches, the last soldier of World War II, Ted Rubin, who is a Holocaust survivor turned Korean War vet hero, the Ghost Army, a pretty badass cook, and some other honorable mentions. So sit back and relax as we do our best to take you from being freaked out, insecure, neurotic, and emotional to truly being fine about echoing the honor of Veterans Day.
Welcome to the I'm F.I.N.E podcast with your freaked out, insecure, neurotic, and emotional hosts, Eric Peterson and Brad Stosiek.
Got bellies full of sushi. Just ready for this, dude.
Yes.
Hey, Brad.
Hello.
How are you?
Fantastic.
Yeah?
Yeah.
This episode is airing on Veterans Day.
Woo-hoo.
Yay! It's our day. It's our day. I like to call it Free Chicken Penne Day at Applebee's.
Yep.
Is there anything in particular that you would, like any discount, anything that you do on Veterans Day? Like to try to not take advantage in a negative way, but like, you know.
I try to do 3 different restaurants. So breakfast, I'll go somewhere, get a meal. Lunch, I'll go somewhere and get a meal. And dinner, I'll go somewhere and get a meal.
Yeah.
No, why not?
I never really have the time. I'll try to get like one meal somewhere.
I got nothing but time,
restaurant,
buddy.
But it's pretty cool. There's a lot of really cool stuff going on Veterans Day.
Yeah.
And Veterans Day, when I was a younger veteran, you know, it was cool. But like every year, it means a little bit more, I think, to me, especially when you look at kind of what we do. And what we've been through and what our organization does, what this podcast was founded for. Like I'm proud. I become more proud of it in a very comfortable, genuine way. Yep. You know what I mean? So
I agree.
I'm glad that we get to take one episode to kind of talk about veterans, like really go into some stories about veterans, not just in U.S. history, but just history that have just accomplished some insane things, done amazing things, and that really represent what I feel like is like the veteran spirit. You know what I mean? And so we have some really cool stories to get through. I want to make sure we get to them all. Before we do, what are our sources for this episode, Bradley?
Mm-hmm. Let me make sure it's because I'm blind, not because I'm a Marine, right? History.com,
Yep.
BBC.com, SmithsonianMag.com, Army.mil, and National World War II Museum.org.
Very good.
Thank you. You did it.
You did it.
Hooray.
So, and before we get into these stories, I just wanted to briefly go over again, like what Veterans Day is. So again, I think that some of these stories that we're going to talk about just do a really excellent job in explaining the diverse, chaotic, crazy history of just the veteran mentality in general. So it's cool to be able to talk about it for an episode. But before I do, I wanted to make sure that I went over what Veterans Day is again, just briefly. So Veterans Day is observed on November 11th to commemorate the armistice that ended World War I. The armistice took effect on November 11th, 1918 at 11 a.m., the 11th hour of the 11th day of the 11th month. This ceasefire marked the end of hostilities on the Western Front, effectively bringing the war to a close. Originally, November 11th was known as Armistice Day in the United States, dedicated to honoring the service and sacrifice of World War I veterans. In 1954, after World War II and the Korean War, Congress amended the holiday to honor all U.S. military service veterans, renaming it Veterans Day. I also love when I get to like do any type of event with a school.
Yeah.
Like, it's always really fun when like a kid wants to talk to you or ask you questions or like do a little report on you. Like, I love that. You know what I mean? It's really cool getting to share those stories and have a positive role in our community just by being able to do things like that. You know what I mean?
This is actually my first year I get to go talk to the fourth graders.
Yeah?
Yeah.
That's really cool. Are you excited?
Oh yeah. I'm going to embarrass Gavin so hard.
I look forward to that day.
I told him,
embarrass my kids.
I told him that's what I was going to do.
Yeah.
And he looked at me, he's like, dude, you better not.
Or you can just make a lot of dad jokes. Go hard.
I was going to be just like, Gavin, where are you, buddy?
Yeah. No, man, that's very cool. So yeah, I love Veterans Day. I get so busy between doing different events, supporting different events on Veterans Day, especially in our area. Our area has so much stuff going on. Depending on when you're listening to this, on Veterans Day in Kankakee County, there's a Veterans Day run at 8 in the morning in Manteno, where if you're a vet, you can run to all the high school or all the schools and the kids come outside. That's really cool. There is I am emceeing a Veterans Day ceremony at the Kankakee Historical Society. At the Kankakee County Museum. Sorry. I'm emceeing an event there, and then we're doing a ribbon cutting open house for the Liberty Lodge, a permanent supportive housing project for homeless vets in Kankakee County off Washington, which is super cool in Kankakee. And then I got to go to a high school, Manteno High School, for their presentation. They're doing a veteran ceremony. I feel like there's a couple other things going on that day. We're just all over the place.
Nice, dude.
So it's really cool. I love it. I'm more proud of it every year. And if you are a veteran listening to this or know a veteran, I hope you can take this episode to reflect on what it means to be a veteran and why hopefully you are proud to be one too. And to demonstrate that, there are a lot of incredible stories of veterans and people in times of war that weren't necessarily planning to be. They went above and beyond the call of duty to perform these incredible things. And there's plenty of stories that are out there that we all know about. Chris Kyle Carpenter, Alman Cash. Like, there are these amazing people that did a lot overseas. Some obviously were killed overseas. This is not about those stories. I think it would be cool to do a Memorial Day episode about some of those vets, but this is really just about that veteran spirit. So the best way that I thought to kick that off, my first story that I wanted to tell is about, well, especially because this is right after Halloween, it is about Marina Raskova and the night witches of the Soviet Union. So the 588th Night Bomber Regiment, known as the Night Witches, was a group of Soviet female pilots who flew harrowing missions against the Nazis. Their fearless nocturnal tactics have become legendary. The squadron was the brainchild of Marina Raskova, known as the Soviet Amelia Earhart, famous not only as the first female navigator in the Soviet Air Force, but also for her many long-distance flight records. She had been receiving letters from women all across the Soviet Union wanting to join World War II and the war effort. While they had been allowed to participate in support roles, there were many who wanted to be gunners and pilots flying on their own. Many had lost brothers or partners, sweethearts, or had seen their homes and villages just ravaged by war. Seeing an opportunity, Raskova petitioned Soviet dictator Joseph Stalin to let her form an all-female fighting squadron. On October 8th, 1941, Stalin gave orders to deploy 3 all-female Air Force units. The women would not only fly missions and drop bombs, they would return fire, making the Soviet Union the first nation to officially allow women to engage in combat. Because everybody knows Stalin, great dude, right? No, not so much. But even when you hear stories about this, you see how terrible people are capable of good things, and great people are capable of terrible things too. But yeah, so Soviet Union, first nation to officially allow women to engage in combat. They flew under the cover of darkness in bare bones plywood biplanes. I didn't know that planes were made out of plywood. They braved bullets and frostbite in the air while battling skepticism and unfortunately sexual harassment on the ground. They were feared and hated so much by the Nazis that any German airman who downed one was automatically awarded the prestigious Iron Cross Medal. All told, the pioneering, all-female 588th Night Bomber Regiment dropped more than 23,000 tons of bombs on Nazi targets, and in doing so, they became a crucial Soviet asset in winning World War II. The Germans nicknamed them Nachthexen, or night witches, because the whooshing noise of their wooden planes resembled that of a sweeping broom. This sound was the only warning the Germans had. The planes were too small to show up on radar or on infrared locators. They never used radios, so radio locators couldn't pick them up either. They were basically ghosts. So 1920s crop dusters that had been, were what they used, and they'd been used as training vehicles anywhere else. These were light two-seater, open cockpit planes that were never meant for combat. Some accounts describe their planes as coffins with wings. So, dude, you have the first all-female squadrons, like fighter pilots, you know what I mean? And they're on this open plywood biplane. They come in late at night so low that it's under all the radars. They cut their motors off so they can just like whoo,
glide, yeah.
Yep, and then they just drop bombs and go away. Like, that's nuts. Dude, that's so cool.
That's so cool.
That's insane to me. Like, it's such a man. It's a badass story. You know what I mean? Yeah, the night witches, and then to have that.
They should make a movie about that.
I looked if there was. Some of these stories have movies made after them. I don't think I found one for the night. I think there was one in Russia. Like you can. They made a movie about it, but I don't think there's anything over here that we've seen.
Also,
yeah.
Side note: did you ever notice when anyone does like a German accent, it's always angry?
It's hard not to.
Read what they call them again.
Nachthexen.
Yeah, you read that, and I was like,
that's what I'm just trying to be normal when I read it, but it's hard. You read German, just Nachthexen.
Read it not like that though. Read it just like Nachthexen.
Nachthexen. Sounds like it's angry. When you read German, you have to sound angry, I feel like. Okay. So yeah, Soviet Night Witches and Marina Reskova, very cool, badass story of the first female fighter pilots. Second story, the last soldier of World War II. So it was December of 1944. In the final months of World War II, a Japanese lieutenant named Hiroo Onoda was stationed on Lubang, a tiny island in the Philippines. Within weeks of his arrival, a U.S. attack forced Japanese combatants into the jungle. But unlike most of his comrades, Onoda remained hidden on the island. The Japanese government declared him dead in 1959, but in reality, he was alive, committed to a secret mission that had instructed him to hold the island until the Imperial Army's return. He was convinced the whole time that the war had never ended, until a former comrade was able to get him to surrender. In 1974, 30 years later, his experience is told in Arthur Harari's epic 3-hour film Onoda, 10,000 Nights in the Jungle, which has won critical acclaim and created controversy since its premiere at the Cannes Film Festival in 2021. At the Futamata branch of the Nakano Military School, Onoda's training instructed him that he was not to die by his own hand and under no circumstances give up his life voluntarily. So he was told that in training, and he wasn't fucking around.
They took it and ran with it.
Onoda's mission was to destroy the Lubang airfield and appear by the harbor, plus any enemy planes or crews who attempted to land. He failed, and as enemy forces took control of the island, he and his fellow troops retreated into the jungle. The war was soon over, but the leaflets that were dropped on Lubang to inform stragglers of Japan's surrender on 15 August 1945 were all dismissed as fakes by Onoda and the 3 remaining servicemen who stood by him. They remained hidden in the wilderness among stinging ants and snakes, living on a diet of banana skins, coconuts, and stolen rice, convinced that the enemy was trying to starve them out. Search parties try to find them, but Onoda assumed them to be Japanese prisoners forced against their will. Photos from family members were believed to be doctored. Onoda was not aware that his hometown had been bombed and rebuilt. Jets heard flying overhead during the Korean War in 1950 to 53 were thought to be a Japanese counteroffensive, while newspapers dropped on the island informing them otherwise were dubbed as Yankee propaganda. Onoda wrote in his memoir that as early as 1959, he and his comrade Kinshichi Kazuka had developed so many fixed ideas that we were unable to understand anything that did not conform to them. Kazuka was ultimately killed by shots fired by a local police officer in October of 72, but Onoda remained on the island alone for another 18 months before an encounter with an eccentric Japanese explorer named Norio Suzuki resulted in an agreement. If Suzuki could bring Onoda's commanding officer to Lubang with direct orders to lay down arms, he would comply. Suzuki's mission was a success, and Onoda's war came to an end on March 9th, 1974. The determination. That's an infantry dude, I'm telling you. Like,
yeah.
It's just like, you're going to stay in these woods and you're not going to come out no matter what.
Yeah.
And he's like, okay. And he goes in there for 30 years. Like, can you, and like, what I imagine in my head is like, people are like trying to tell him, like they're dropping leaflets and stuff like, yo, dude, war's over. We're in the next one now. And he's like, nope. Like, he's just hiding in the jungle, just like, nope. Don't believe it. Like,
liar!
Not coming out. Like, you know what I mean? It's like, come on, Onoda. It's been 20 years, man. Nope. Don't believe it at all. Like,
or he is the hide and seek champion of the world.
He is the hide and seek champion of the world. Like,
dude, it reminds me of that movie where the Blast from the Past
with Brendan Fraser and Alicia Silverstone.
Yes, yeah.
I'm familiar.
Yeah, that's what it reminds me of.
But like the grit, and like I read that story, and in my mind, I'm just like, that's an infantry grunt for fucking sure. He just walks and just hangs out for 30 years. Can you? Okay. What were things that you would complain about in the military? Like, I'm not gonna lie, infantry, we got to stay outside, right? We're sleeping outside, and then there's times when you complain about that. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, it's the end of a long day, and you got to sleep, and it's raining, and you're just like, fuck, and you complain about that. And then I think of this dude,
yeah,
30 years, just like hanging out, figuring it out. You know what I mean?
Jesus Christ, dude.
Like, I wonder, unreal. What do you think he did all day? Like, you would go crazy. 30 years? Like George of the Jungle? Or Tarzan?
Dude, that's like Castaway.
Yeah. I don't remember how long he was
not
away
30
in that movie.
Years.
Yeah. Yeah, dude. I feel like I would be, I would have lost my mind in 30 years.
He didn't even get a volleyball to talk to or anything.
He probably took like a coconut or something. Like, what type of stuff did you complain about, though? Did you, like, as a cook, did you bitch much or no?
Did I bitch much?
That bad?
Oh, my God.
Yeah.
Better question is, when did I not bitch?
Really?
No, I think my biggest gripe was, like, just the amount of time we worked. Like, that was probably my biggest gripe. Because
your day as a cook starts at what time?
Well, we were on, it was called a 2-shift, or I'm sorry, a 2-watch.
Yeah.
So let's just say Monday we'd make breakfast, and that probably go in about 2:00.
Yeah.
Yeah.
2 in the morning.
2:30.
Okay.
Yeah, somewhere around there.
And then when's your day done? After lunch?
No, right before lunch is served. Like, you help clean up, help prep for the next. And then you get to go home.
So that's that first shift.
That's the first watch.
Okay.
The second watch is lunch, dinner.
That seems like it's more work.
Which no, it's not. It's not really.
Okay.
So you get that whole next day off, and then the second watch does lunch, dinner, and then you just like rotate like that.
Okay.
And then every other weekend you work. So you just bitch about how long you work.
Did you also ever have to do like fire guard, fire watch? Did you guys have anything like that?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So how did that work for you?
As far what do you mean?
Like, what? So for me in Afghanistan, certain teams would get tasked to do tower guard on any given night. And there's like a rotation. So like everybody had a turn where like, you know, you get back from mission, you're like, fuck, and you go back to get some chow something really quick in you, and then you're off to the tower to just sit there for like 8 hours. You know what I mean? And then everybody would take a turn pulling tower guard. We didn't have fire watch or whatever, with the exception of boot camp. We had fire guard, but like we did that also, you know, towers at least.
We had once a month, usually barracks duty, or like I forgot what it was called, but there was like the base duty, and you'd be like their A duty, and then there was for the barracks too. There was the barracks duty, and then there was the A duty, and that was a 24-hour post, and then usually you would stand that duty.
You said the word duty so many times. I'm sorry.
I love that word.
Yeah, I know.
Depending on who you're on duty with, if they let you sleep, that's cool. But a lot of times they don't let you sleep. So.
That's 7 days a week?
No.
Okay.
Oh yeah. It is 7 days a week, and it's just like it goes to the unit, and you just check the list. Yeah. And then you're just like, okay. Usually you get it once a week. Okay. Or, I'm sorry, once a month. Usually you get it.
What was the hardest part of the job?
Of duty or being a cook?
Being a cook.
I think the hardest part of the job was probably, I'd have to say, again, like the hours. Yeah. And afraid to like mess up. Because they used to tell you, like, if you screw this up, you can get anybody sick, you'll go to jail.
Well, then the fear of just getting a bunch of fellow service members sick is like, fuck. That gives you some anxiety for sure.
Nothing crazy like any of these stories that you've read, but you know.
Nah, dude, everybody's got through. But
also, a lot of people like to bitch if you mess up their omelet or whatever. So.
Oh yeah.
God forbid.
Yeah. I mean, half of the time where I was at, we were just happy that it was hot chow. Yeah. You know what I mean? Like we were lucky because there was a lot of other guys. Like I was in Afghanistan 08, 09. So a lot of the guys that came before me, they didn't have what we had. Like I'm super thankful. I was at a little fob. We weren't at like a base that had like fast food places or whatever. We had like a teeny little bazaar from local merchants. And we had one like little restaurant that was run by a local. It wasn't really a restaurant. It was a Connex. He was in like a trailer. And he would just bring food out there. But I didn't have to like dig fighting positions and sleep in the dirt like my buddies that were there just a few years before me were. Like I was in a concrete room most of the time. There were a couple of occasions like where we would run missions that lasted several days where we would have to sleep in the trucks or whatever, and like that even wasn't a big deal because I remember once in Afghanistan, the weird thing is that there's times where you're on like base level and it's like warm, and then you go up to the top of the mountain same day and it's fucking freezing and there's snow and you're like, what the fuck? You know what I mean? Yeah. And it was poor planning on my part, but I didn't have all my winter stuff, and it was one of these things. It was an overnight. We were at a small cop. I was to sleep. I remember I got out of the vehicle. And we had a spine board on the top of our hood, the hood of our Humvee. We had a spine board, you know, what you would use if you were trying to transport somebody that was injured. Mm-hmm. And I just took one of my shirts, I filled it with other shirts, I put it under my head, and I slept on the spine board with a blanket and a little bit of the heat from the engine. And I slept soundly, bro. It's so weird. Like I could sleep fine there. And now I'm in a comfy ass bed with 1,000... what do you call it? Thread count sheets. Egyptian cotton, and I'm like, I can't sleep. You know what I mean? But
this is so uncomfortable.
If you've ever had to sleep on a fucking helipad, and a bird comes in, like when you're sleeping, like that's a real fun alarm clock. Yep. 50,000 pieces of gravel hitting you in the face like at 2 a.m. when you can't see anything. So yeah. Good times. But even in those times, when I think about when I wanted to give up or complain, think about Hiro Onoda, who stayed in the jungle for 30 fucking years after the war. Crazy. So the next story we're going to talk about is about Henry Lincoln Johnson and the Harlem Hellfighters. Just an insanely badass name. Johnson, a member of the all-black 369th Infantry Regiment, single-handedly fended off a German patrol in World War I, becoming one of the first Americans awarded the French Croix de Guerre. I can't do French. It's Croix. I assume that's Croix.
What is it with you? You're so aggressive with French, your like... Croix. With all your everything.
I blame my mom because when she would speak Tagalog on the phone to her friends all the time, it just sounds like they're screaming at each other.
Oh.
Like every other language is just aggressive.
Well, it's not.
Yeah, I know.
French is supposed to be the language of love. French. You don't yell at people.
Quoi. How do you say quoi? Quoi? Quoi.
You gotta be like sexy about it.
Quoi.
I said sexy, Eric.
Quoi. Just whisper.
You gotta like rub the microphone on your face.
Good Lord. Henry Johnson. Henry Johnson, who stood 5'4", which I'm sure, Brad, you can appreciate, and weighed 130 pounds, which you can also appreciate, but had enlisted in the all-black 15th New York National Guard Regiment, which was renamed the 369th Infantry Regiment when it shipped out to France. Poorly trained, the unit mostly performed menial labor, like unloading ships and digging latrines, until it was lent to the French Fourth Army, which was short on troops. The French, less preoccupied by race than they were the Americans, welcomed the men that became known as the Harlem Hellfighters. It's also crazy to me how, like, the military, you are a piece of equipment when you're in the military. They're like, we're just going to give you this unit, these 40 people. Like, here you go. You know, we don't need you right now. We're going to send you to this army. You're going to go fucking...
Yeah,
you know what I
mean? You get a number right when you join. You get a fucking number.
And a lot of guys, I know a lot of guys that got in as one thing and did not do whatever their MOS was. You know what I mean? Like I met a veteran who is also a cook, and whatever happened to him when he got to Iraq in like 2003, 2004, he carried like a 249. Like he was running and gunning on Route Irish like all day. You know what I'm saying? Like he did not do what his MOS was.
I believe that.
You know what I mean? So it's like, you never really know sometimes what you're going to get into, which is crazy. The Hellfighters were sent to Outpost 20 on the western edge of the Argonne Forest in France's Champagne region, and privates Henry Johnson and Needham Roberts from Trenton, New Jersey were given French helmets, French weapons, and enough French words to understand commands from their superiors. Go forth and do great things, buddy. Like they taught them, like, this is cheese omelet du fromage. Here's a gun. Best of luck, bro. Like later, the two American soldiers were posted on sentry duty on the midnight to 4 a.m. shift. Johnson thought it was crazy to send untrained men out at the risk of the rest of the troops, he later told a reporter, but he told the corporal he would tackle the job. He and Roberts weren't on duty long when German snipers began firing at them. After the shots rang out, Johnson and Roberts lined up a box of grenades in their dugout to have ready if a German raiding party tried to make a move. Just after 2 a.m., Johnson heard what he called snipping and clipping of wire cutters on the perimeter fence and told Roberts to run back to the camp to let French troops know that there was trouble coming. Johnson then hurled a grenade toward the fence, which brought a volley of return gunfire from the Germans, as well as enemy grenades. Roberts didn't get far before he decided to return to help Johnson fight, but he was hit with a grenade and wounded too badly in his arm and hip to do any fighting himself. Johnson had him lie in the trench and hand him grenades, which the Albany native threw at the Germans. But there were too many enemy soldiers, and they advanced from every direction. Eventually, Johnson ran out of grenades. He took German bullets in the head and lip, but fired his rifle into the darkness. He took more bullets in his side, then his hand, but kept shooting until he shoved an American cartridge clip into his French rifle, and it jammed. By now, the Germans were on top of him. Johnson swung his rifle like a club and kept them at bay until the stock of his rifle splintered. Then he went down with a blow to his head. Overwhelmed, he saw that the Germans were trying to take Roberts prisoner. The only weapon Johnson had left was a bolo knife, so he climbed up from the ground and charged, hacking away at the Germans before they could get clean shots at him. Like, what the fuck, dude? Like, this dude, his first shot was a shot to the head. And he's just the Energizer Bunny, man.
Oh, was he Rambo?
This is a real story about a real person.
That is unbelievable.
Each slash meant something, believe me, Johnson later said. I wasn't doing exercises, let me tell you. He stabbed one German in the stomach, felled a lieutenant, and took a pistol shot to his arm before driving his knife between the ribs of a soldier who had climbed on his back. Johnson managed to drag Roberts away from the Germans, who retreated as they heard the French and American forces advancing. When reinforcements arrived, Johnson passed out and was taken to a field hospital. By daylight, the carnage was evident. Johnson had killed 4 Germans and wounded an estimated 10 to 20 more. Even after suffering 21 wounds in hand-to-hand combat, Henry Johnson had prevented the Germans from busting through the French line. He was quoted later to say there wasn't anything so fine about it. Just fought for my life. A rabbit would have done that. Later, the entire French force in Champagne lined up to see the 2 Americans receive their decorations. The Croix de Guerre, France's highest military honor. They were the first American privates to receive it. Johnson's medal included the coveted gold palm for extraordinary valor. With dozens of bullet and shrapnel wounds, he knew he was lucky to just survive. His discharge records erroneously made no mention of his injuries. And so Johnson was denied not only a Purple Heart, but a disability allowance as well. He made it back home to Albany, New York, and resumed his job as a red cap porter at a train station, but he could never overcome his injuries. His left foot had been shattered. A metal plate held it together. Johnson's inability to hold down a job led him to the bottle, and it didn't take long for his wife and children to leave him, and he died, unfortunately, in 1929 at the age of 32. In 1996, President Bill Clinton posthumously awarded Henry Johnson the Purple Heart. And once Johnson's place of burial had been located at Arlington in 2001, the Army awarded him the Distinguished Service Cross, the nation's second highest military decoration. I tell his story because it's one worth telling. So it's important on Veterans Day to remember these stories and remember their names. Henry Johnson, like, fuck, dude. What he saw and did, what happened to him, and despite all that, he took it all, sounded like he took it all on the chin, just trying to walk that shit off. Yeah, just try to, and just like, hey man, I didn't, I just did what I needed to do, got out of there. And he came back and we did not take care of him like we should have. And the fact that he wasn't service connected for anything is a fucking tragedy of epic proportions. Are you kidding me? Yeah. Like, veterans have gone through so much to give us what we have. I don't just say us as a country. I say us as veterans now.
Yep.
Like, I am so thankful that we have the veterans in our history that did all of the things that they had to do so we can have the rights that we have, which is why you got to remember their stories. You have to learn their stories. Please remember Henry Johnson and the Harlem Hellfighters. They can't always have a good ending, unfortunately, but if we can keep those names alive, in my opinion, that's one way to honor them. You know what I'm saying? The next story is Tibor Rubin, who's a Holocaust survivor turned Korean War hero. So Rubin, a Hungarian Holocaust survivor, joined the U.S. Army and served in the Korean War, where he was captured and endured harsh conditions as a POW. His courage earned him the Medal of Honor. At the age of 13, Tibor, or Ted Rubin, who was a Hungarian Jew, was forced into the Mauthausen concentration camp towards the end of World War II. But Rubin defied all odds. He survived. After the war, he moved to New York and eventually joined the same army that liberated him from hell on earth. Rubin went on to fight in the Korean War and was taken prisoner by the Chinese. This time, he breathed life into his fellow captives who were dying at the rate of 40 a day in the winter of 1950 to 1951. He was just a boy when he lost his parents and his 2 little sisters to the Nazis' brutality in the concentration camp. In Mauthausen, they told us right away, you Jews, none of you will ever make it out of here alive. Reuben remembers. Every day, so many people were killed. Bodies piled up, God knows how high. We had nothing to look forward to but dying. It was the most terrible thing, like a horror movie. American soldiers swept into the camp on May 5th of 1945 to liberate the prisoners. Reuben said that the American soldiers had great compassion for us. Even though we were filthy, we stunk, we had diseases, they still picked us up and brought us back to life. Reuben made a vow that day that he fulfilled 10 times over. I made a promise that I would go into the United States and join the army to express my thanks, said Reuben. 3 years later, he arrived in New York. 2 years after that, he passed the English language test, and after 2 attempts, and with more than a little help, he jokes, he joined the army. He was shipped to the 29th Infantry Regiment in Okinawa. When the Korean War broke out, Reuben was summoned by his company commander. The 29th Infantry Regiment is mobilizing. You are not a U.S. citizen, so we can't take you. A lot of us are going to get killed. We'll send you to Japan or Germany, Reuben remembers being told. But I cannot just leave my unit for some safe zone, Reuben said. I was with these guys in basic training. Even though I wasn't a citizen yet, America was my country. Reuben got what he wanted and headed for Korea. Corporal Reuben deployed to Korea on February 13th, 1950 as part of Echo Company, 3rd Battalion, 8th Cavalry Regiment, 1st Cavalry Division. The names in the fucking army sometimes, dude. There's so many words. So many words. He saved a lot of GIs' lives. He gave them the courage to go on living when a lot of guys didn't make it, said a fellow POW, Sergeant Leo Cormier. He saved my life when I could have laid in a ditch and died. I was nothing but flesh and bones. Reuben was nominated for the Medal of Honor 4 times by grateful comrades. While most military decorations are awarded for a single act, Reuben's was earned by courage that withstood battle on the front lines and then thrived in the face of death for 2.5 years. People ask, how the hell did you get through all that? Said Reuben. And I can't answer, but I figured whatever I did, I was never going to make it out alive. The personal character of Corporal Reuben and his call to duty are exemplified in this quote. I always wanted to become a citizen of the United States, and when I became a citizen, it was one of the happiest days of my life. I think about the United States, and I am a lucky person to live there. When I came to America, it was the first time I was free. It was one of the only reasons I joined the U.S. Army, because I wanted to show my appreciation. Reuben received the Prisoner of War Medal after being held as a POW in North Korea for 30 months and 2 Purple Hearts during his service. So I like that story because one of the things that I love a lot about being a veteran is the diversity. Like in my platoon, whether it was when I was in boot camp or here, like it was such a diverse, eclectic group of people. And you have people from other countries that are serving in our military. I know people have feelings about immigration, so on and so forth. And, you know, my mother came here to this country the right way, did all the things she had to do to become an American citizen, very lengthy process. And it's difficult. And some people don't have those abilities, you know what I mean? But for people to truly appreciate this country so much that they come here from another country and they join our military. Yeah. Oh my God, man. That's not the only story. There's plenty of other stories of heroism from veterans. Like I didn't write any of this down. On September 11th, I tell the story, I post about it every September 11th. There was a Vietnam vet named Rick Riscorla, and he's from another country. I can't remember the country, but he was in charge of security for the Morgan Stanley. It was like 30, 40 floors on one of the towers in the World Trade Center. And he practiced safety drills like all the time. And like to the point where people were like giving him shit about it. Like, yo, bro, we need to cut this shit out. And he's like, nope, we're going to keep practicing. When 9/11 happened, because all of his people were so well trained, they all made it out. Fucking like everyone, there was like thousands of them. They all made it out. As they were terrified, I remember as they were going down the stairs, from the accounts that I'd read, Riscorla would like sing songs to keep morale high. He called his wife at one point just to tell her that he loved her. And the last time anybody ever saw Rick Riscorla, he had gotten everybody out of his floors of the Morgan Stanley building, the Morgan Stanley section of the World Trade Center. And he was running back into the building. And he just said, I'm not stopping until I get them all out. That was the last time anybody saw him. He came from another country, served in our military. You know what I'm saying? Like, holy shit, bro. Like,
hell yeah.
Insane, man. Yeah. The selflessness of those people. That's why I like telling stories about veterans from other countries too. Like, there's something in many of us to be able to devote ourselves to a cause that's bigger than ourselves, whether we agree with it or all the time or not. Yeah. You know what I mean?
Absolutely.
Okay, the next story, also fitting with the time of year, it's just after Halloween, is the Ghost Army. So a unit in World War II known as the Ghost Army used inflatable tanks, sound effects, and a fake radio transmissions to deceive German forces. Their tactics were instrumental in the Allies' success in Europe. So right out the gate, I'm like, bro, this was my unit. Dude, like, I just what's our job? Just to go and just play fuck games and like just imagine, fuck around, see if we can confuse these guys.
Dude, what do you think the Germans like thought of? Like, what are they doing? They have to blow up tanks. These will not do anything to us.
An inflatable tank, just a tank's just floating up in the fucking sky. Yeah, this is pretty incredible and crazy to me. So, activated on January 20th, 1944, the 23rd Headquarters Special Troops, known as the Ghost Army, was the first mobile, multimedia, tactical deception unit in U.S. Army history. And I'm sure it was the only one. Consisting of an authorized strength of 82 officers and 1,023 men under the command of Army veteran Colonel Harry Reeder, this unique and top secret unit was capable of simulating 2 whole divisions, approximately 30,000 men, and used visual, sonic, and radio deception to fool German forces during World War II's final year. Now, through the National World War II Museum's newest special exhibit, Ghost Army, the Combat Con Artists of World War II, visitors can learn the story of the 23rd and their role in Allied victory through featured artifacts such as artwork, uniforms, an inflatable tank, and more. So definitely go check that out if you want to learn more about this. It was a brainchild of Colonel Billy Harris and Major Ralph Ingersoll, both American military planners based in London. The unit consisted of a carefully selected group of artists, engineers, professional soldiers, and draftees, including famed artists, famous artists of the time, such as fashion designer Bill Blass, painter Ellsworth Kelly, photographer Art Kane. Many West Point graduates and former Army Specialized Training Program participants were assigned to the 23rd, and it was said to have one of the highest IQs in the Army, with an average of 119. The unit waged war with inflatable tanks and vehicles, fake radio traffic, sound effects, and even phony generals using imagination and illusion to trick the enemy while saving thousands of lives along the way. The 23rd, along with the 33rd Signal Service Company in Italy, helped liberate Europe from the grip of Nazi tyranny. Can you imagine some Nazi shoots at you and misses and just hears like, wah, 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 wah. Like, you know, it's like, what? Like, I just feel like that was my unit, bro. I just feel like being able to go out there and just do wild shit just to see if we can just fuck with these guys. Yeah. That is at the core of who I feel like I am as a veteran. Because when I was overseas on my first deployment, morale was always super important to me.
Yeah.
And so I would always pull pranks and do whatever I could just to get guys to like laugh and shit. And we would do all sorts of stuff like that. I think I've mentioned it before. We managed to come into, what's the word? We acquired a mountain ram.
Tactfully.
Tactically Worcestershire sauce.
Tactfully. How do you say?
We got a mountain ram and we tied it to our first sergeant's door. When we were in Afghanistan, it shit all over the floor. Air Force had to clean it up. Beautiful moment. It's a wonderful moment for everybody. Like just doing things like that. That's why it's like when I read about this unit, I was like, dude, what? Can you imagine being out there? And then they're using like famous artists of the day.
Yeah.
Soldiers, like professional soldiers. And then the whole thing with the draftees, I was just like, you got to get like, I don't know, maybe those, you got to sell it. You know what I mean? So you get people from this huge range, I guess, in being in the military. And they had such a high average IQ because they had to sit here and think about ways to fuck with Nazis all the time. Like, I want to see that movie.
Yeah.
You know, that movie sounds hilarious.
Yeah. It'd be a comedy, right?
I think so. Following the war, the unit's soldiers were sworn to secrecy, records were classified, and the equipment was packed away. Except for a newspaper article right after the war, no one spoke publicly about this group until a 1985 Smithsonian article. Though knowledge of the 23rd Headquarters Special Troops was then public, it was still officially classified until the mid-1990s. So, as I mentioned before, there's a traveling exhibit called Ghost Army that's available for booking at institutions, travels around the country. It's very cool. Check out nationalww2museum.org, and you can get more information about it. There's a documentary by PBS called The Ghost Army, that released in 2013, you can check out. But they staged more than 20 missions of battle, like I said, field deception and operating close to the front lines.
Dude.
Just outside filling up a tank, and you got to imagine they hit one of the tanks, and then the Nazis were like, "Wait a minute!" Like it just popped, and that other one floated in the sky.
This is not a real tank. What is this?
Just blaring. I don't know what the most popular song was of the time, but like just to think of. Your job is just to wake up and figure out different ways to fuck with Nazis all day. Just funny ways. Like, you know what I mean? Just fuck with their day a bit, you know? Amazing job.
Pie cannon.
Well, the sonic warfare stuff, this is stuff that I don't have in front of me, but like when you look into the history of warfare and weaponry and things like that and what other armies have like tried out in different wars, you know, sonic type audio, whatever, acoustic type weaponry, that's been going on, I'm pretty sure, since World War II. And I'm pretty sure the first drone, if I remember right, you can't quote me on this, but I think Henry Ford helped with the construction of it, because I think it was an engine that came from like he helped build the engine.
Yeah.
And it was just like something that would strap bombs to, that they would just kind of fly over to you, like glide it to you. You know what I'm saying?
That's super cool.
So like we've had these abilities for a very long time, but it's just very interesting to me. And the last story is about a cook.
Ooh.
That's a badass.
Yeah.
So you brought this story up to me, and it was great because when we were like going, you know, trying to share stories and see what stories we liked, you were like, "Hey man, I got this cool story. It's about this cook who did some badass stuff." You gave me like a fact about it. I'm like, "That's cool. Let's look this dude up." And then as we read into it more, way cooler. Like he is like John Wick-ish with like a little like more humor, I feel like. You know what I mean?
It's like if John Wick and Colonel Sanders had a baby.
Not the second person I thought you were going to say, but I can see it. I can go with that.
Julia Child?
From Soviet Union. I'm more of a Julia Child. She doesn't want to talk like this, right?
Well,
Julia Child?
Yeah.
I remember Julia Child.
Well, she just did a lot of cooking, so I figured.
Well, this dude's from the Soviet Union. So what famous chef is like from the Soviet Union? Do they have those?
I have no idea.
I make oatmeal. Enjoy.
One time I made vodka cereal.
Yeah. So
vodka and Cheerios, delicious.
Ivan Sereda. So Ivan Sereda, this is his story. Badass cook from the Soviet Union. He was drafted into the Red Army in November 1939. After basic training, he was assigned as a cook to the 91st Tank Regiment, 46th Tank Division of the 21st Mechanized Corps. Again, fuck the military for how they title things sometimes. In August of 1941, Sereda was in a camp outside of the city of Dvinsk, which is in Latvia now. It was evening, and the soldiers were out on maneuvers, leaving him alone in his field kitchen preparing dinner. And then a tank rolled up. Sereda stared at it, wondering how many more men he would need to feed, thinking like, "Oh, it's my guys." Then he realized the tank was not Soviet-made, it was German. Sereda hid behind the kitchen tent. The tank stopped in the clearing and 4 soldiers got out, talking in German. He grabbed his rifle and an axe that he used for cutting firewood, and then he charged at them, screaming like a maniac. Those were the words the article used. Screaming like a maniac. The Germans, thinking that they were outnumbered because of this one fucking dude, running at them with everything he's got. The Germans climb back into their tank with the Soviet cook hot on their heels. They shut the hatch and seconds later opened fire with their machine gun. But Sereda was on the tank. With his axe, he hacked away at the gun barrel, pummeling it until it bent. Can you imagine? I would just assume that there's a fucking werewolf outside. Like, dude, we thought it was an entire army of people. It was one fucking dude. One dude. And then we're like, where is he? And they're shooting a machine gun on a tank, and he's on the tank, bro. Like, that
just doesn't sound real. That's unbelievable.
I know. It's pretty cool. The German troops revved up the tank to escape, but Sereda had stuffed the peepholes so the Germans couldn't see out. He's home aloneing these dudes at this point. He continued hammering on the tank with his axe while yelling at his comrades to bring their tank grenades. There were no comrades out there to hear this, but not knowing that, the Germans just hear this and they surrender. So Sereda ordered them out one by one. As each soldier appeared, he ordered them to tie each other up. On their return, Sereda's superiors were impressed with his actions and made him a scout. So, he managed to get every one of them out, tie up the last one. Again, that's some grunt shit. You get out and you're like, all right, I gotta fucking tie this guy up. They weren't even thinking about it. It was one dude who's acting super confident. And that's another thing I did learn in the military.
Yes.
You carry a clipboard around, you just look like you know what you're doing. And you can probably get by for at least private into corporal, E4 corporal territory, maybe even E5 sergeant, maybe. You know what I'm saying? Just look confident. Sereda was very confident. And then weeks later, the former cook came across a German tank chasing a group of Soviet soldiers. When they stopped to recollect everything, Sereda snuck up to the tank, threw a grenade into it, killed everybody in it. Before the rest could react, he climbed into the tank and then started firing, killing about a dozen Germans and forcing the rest to surrender. He was then made a platoon commander of the 4th Infantry Regiment, 46th Infantry Division of the 1st Shock Army. He fought in the Siege of Leningrad from October 10th to November 23rd. When he was discharged in 1945, he held the rank of lieutenant and was awarded the Hero of the Soviet Union, the Order of Lenin, and several more. Not too bad for a cook.
No.
Dude.
That is amazing.
If you can scare soldiers, and I know what my experience was in Afghanistan and Iraq, but I don't know what other people's experiences were. I sure as hell don't know what it was like to be in the Korean War, Vietnam, World War II. No fucking idea, dude.
No.
I was nowhere near my experience. To imagine the amount of chaos and everything that's going on and not having the type of technology that we necessarily have now. His homeboy is making dinner. Tank rolls up. He's like, hey, what's up? It's my guys. It is not his fucking guys. And then he just decides to be just wild out, run at them screaming, and it scares the shit out of him.
He took down a tank with an axe.
Literally took down a tank.
With an axe.
Nuts. Yeah.
That's unbelievable.
Ivan Pavlovich Sereda.
Dude, that
badass story.
And you got people nowadays oh no, the Wi-Fi's out. What do I do?
I was one of those guys. Fucking Wi-Fi was out, bro.
Oh yeah.
I was we are now listen to me fucking complain. Well, I had spent 30 fucking years in a Filipino jungle, which maybe wouldn't have been bad for me because that's where I'm from. But when we first got Wi-Fi, because the only way I could talk to my wife when, the only communication we had other than letters, because we did write letters and send care packages. She sent care packages to me, but was talking on the phone. And then we figured out a way to get Wi-Fi. One of our staff sergeants brokered some deal with a local dude, got some giant satellite dish, and we had Wi-Fi, but the Wi-Fi was shit. You know what I mean? It was always going out. So you would try to video your family to see them back home, and it didn't really work out that way all the time. It was 2008, 2009, and we just didn't have the capability. But I talked to my wife on the phone. before I get to that, when the Wi-Fi would go out, we would bitch. We would complain what the fuck? We're all playing like Call of Duty or something like that.
Yeah.
And then I'm like now looking at that, like complaining about that. What the fuck is wrong with me?
Right?
You know?
Like, dude, I don't even want to, like, those are the, like, if the World War II, like, if those veterans and stuff were still alive, dude, they would laugh.
They would be angry with us.
Oh my God. They would be mad.
So angry. We would give them an MRE and they would be like, what is this delectable 5-course meal?
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah. They would be like, Jesus Christ, you have what?
Yeah.
Stop.
Yeah. But like, yeah. And I would talk to my wife, Ashley, on the phone, and she heard, I think I told you this story before. Like, I'm talking on the phone to my wife because we didn't have, like, the Wi-Fi was kind of, in and out. And she heard a RPG hit the building next to us, which was the Afghan National Army. It was like one of their buildings. And like, she heard the explosion and then it was quiet. She's like, what was that? And then I'm waiting. And then you hear the tat-tat-tat-tat-tat-tat-tat-tat. Yeah, you hear the machine gun fire. I'm like, babe, I love you. I got to go by. Click. And I had to hang up on her.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And she didn't know what was going on in those moments. It's so terrifying for her. And at least I knew what was happening in the situation. You know what I mean? And moments like that are so weird because it's like, it's not like it plays out in the movies. So like, we're in this plywood MWR. We hear the machine gun fire, but it's not going into our building. And it's a small building. It's like a room. But we can hear the machine gun fire and it sounds like it's close. And so there's a lieutenant colonel or something. He was a high-ranking officer, stands up and he just says, we need to stay in this building. Like, we need to stay buttoned up here. And the building's built out of plywood and they're shooting machine guns out there. We had a guy who I don't know how to say this in a way where it's not super offensive. I don't know how he got into the military. I don't know how he got in. I don't know why they gave him a gun. I don't know why they gave him anything. He was that guy where you're like, you feel a little apprehensive, skeptical, giving him a firearm. Okay.
Yeah.
And his head always bounced back and forth. Like, he could not keep his head still. It was just bobbing all the time. And he stood up after the lieutenant colonel told us all to stay there. And he goes, I don't know about y'all, but we need to be getting the fuck out of here. And he said that, and me and 3 other dudes on my team just stood up and we're like, yep, like, I'm never going to say this again in my life, but we're following him. And we opened the door and it was dark. It was like nighttime and you could see the tracer rounds and we're just like running. And when you see a tracer round, you're not sitting there like, I wonder how high up that is. You're just like you're running as low to the ground as possible and just going. And we got to our trucks, got on our vehicles, pulled security. Everything was fine. Get back, call my wife on the phone, and she just sounded like she'd been crying like the entire time because we were disconnected for like 4 hours.
Yeah.
And then also, I can't remember what the protocols were, but like when you got into a firefight, like comms went down if you were on a base and we got into a firefight, like I'm pretty sure comms went down for a certain amount of time until we figured out exactly what happened, because you don't want false information getting out about somebody being dead and they're not, or whatever. Right. You know what I mean? So finally, when everything was said and done, I got to call my wife back. But like, man, that's why spouses go through a lot too, dude. You know what I mean? So, and then I had a few honorable mentions that I wanted to discuss. I don't have as much information about them as I do with those stories, but I still think it's pretty cool. So first one is Operation Mincemeat. So during World War II, the British carried out Operation Mincemeat, which is where they planted false invasion plans on a corpse dressed as a British soldier and floated it off the Spanish coast. The ruse worked, leading the Germans to divert troops, convinced by the planted officer who happened to be a dead homeless person. What? Can you imagine, like, hey, Sarge, got an idea. Like, that guy, why don't we try this? You know what I mean? We're just going to put notes on them, and then we're just going to throw them in the lake, in the river, and then they're going to see that and be like, that's what they're doing. And then we got them. You know what I mean? Like, that's how this stuff, wars were fought. So much of this stuff happened. It wasn't all just the way that I thought about conventional warfare. Like, there was so much crazy shit that happened, and missions like that ended up working out, which is crazy. Next one, the soldier. This one makes me proud. He's not an American GI, but damn it sounds like one. The soldier who escaped a Nazi POW camp 200 times for a girl. British POW Horace Greasley regularly escaped from his Nazi POW camp to visit a German woman that he loved. He'd slip back into the camp before dawn and continue his dangerous routine over 200 times, never caught in the act. Like, you read that and you're like, that is, I know what that dude looks like in my head. Like, I know that soldier, bro. Like, that is going to risk his life over 200 times sneaking out of a concentration camp
for a woman.
Yup.
Yeah.
And then he comes back every morning like, hey, what's up, guys? Like, that's again, you keep doing this.
Like, why don't you just go? Why are you coming back?
Never got caught.
That's unbelievable.
Never got caught.
He's that dude that, like, right out of boot camp, he's like, I'm gonna marry her.
Oh yeah, Fort Bragg. Yeah. I've been told that there is a gentleman's club outside of Fort Bragg, or right around Fort Bragg, where they have very cheap pitchers of beer, allegedly. Which I'm like, that's not fair. Don't you do that to those fucking privates? Okay, how dare you? And we had a guy who got his re-enlistment bonus, and we were moving to go to Afghanistan, and he did all of his re-enlistment money. It was like, no, man, she likes me. And I'm like, all right, man. Okay. Like,
she likes you.
Yes. Yeah. So again, that is that dude. That is Horace Greasley to me. But, well, no, that's not a fair comparison, because Horace Greasley did over 200 times, same German woman, and never got caught.
That dude, I just don't understand. Like, why would you go back? Like, you successfully...
Because he's a veteran, bro. He's like, well, it's time to go back. I got to get back before chow. Before morning formation.
Hey, if you're not there 15 minutes early, you're late, dude. I got to go.
Morning formation. Gotta get past the Germans, you know? Like, crazy. So...
man, we're having... What day is it? It's Thursday the 14th? Fuck, we're having meatloaf for dinner. Babe, I got to go back. We're having meatloaf.
Over 200 times.
I love your strutzel or whatever they eat in but...
And again, he's not an American, but I just feel like I just feel so American about that story.
That's unbelievable. That is so cool.
Bro. Hell yeah.
That is so cool.
Awesome. And then the last one that I wanted to share isn't so much about veterans. I don't even know. It sort of relates to this, sort of not. It's just a fucking crazy story that I came across while reading up on all this stuff. And I was like, I read the first note and I was like, it can't be real. And then I looked more into it. It's totally real. This is called Operation Acoustic Kitty. So Operation Acoustic Kitty was a secret plan to turn cats into portable spying devices. However, the CIA only produced one acoustic kitty because it abandoned the project after a test with this cat went horribly wrong. Whenever an article says something went horribly wrong, it's like horrible. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So like, the acoustic kitty was nothing short of a feline android hybrid cyborg cat. A surgeon implanted a microphone in his ear and a radio transmitter at the base of its skull. The surgeon also wove an antenna into the cat's fur. The CIA operatives hoped that they could train the cat to sit near foreign officials. That way, the cat could secretly transmit their private conversations to the CIA operatives. This is a real story. For its first official test, CIA staffers drove Acoustic Kitty to the park and tasked it with capturing the conversation of two men sitting on a bench. Instead, the cat wandered into a street where it was hit by a car. And that was the end of the Acoustic Kitty project.
Jesus Christ.
That's a real story. The problem was, according to Emily Anthes, who talks about this in her book, Frankenstein's Cat Cuddling Up to Biotech's Brave New Beasts. So she said the problem was that cats are not especially trainable. She wrote, no shit. In a heavily redacted memo, the CIA concluded our final examination of trained cats convinced us that the program would not lend itself in a practical sense to our highly specialized needs. Bradley, would you like to guess how many dollars they spent on training a cat to go be a spy?
Okay, so here's my guess, but I'm going to guess it's a shit ton of money, but I feel like something good came out of this. What year did you say this was?
Did I say a year?
Either way. I'm going to guess a stupid amount of money. I'm going to say above 20 million.
So, interesting. It was in the 1960s and canceled in 1967.
Okay. So, because of that, and Robo Transport Kitty, whatever.
Acoustic Kitty.
Thus, Tom and Jerry was born.
So, what's your number? What are you saying?
I said above 20 mil.
It cost $20 million.
Jesus.
$20 million to be like, these cats don't listen for shit. Like, dude, I could have told you that, man.
For like a sandwich.
I could have told you that for a half sandwich soup special from Panera Bread. I could have told you that these cats do not give a fuck about you or whatever you want them to do.
No.
They're cats. The CIA, $20 million. They implanted stuff into this cat. They're like, look at us, man. We got it all figured out. And they get to a park and it gets hit by a car.
But Eric,
what, dude? Like,
where are our tax dollars going?
Yes, great question. Great question. And teachers have to buy their markers. $20 million, Acoustic Kitty. Look at us. Crazy fucking story.
That's unbelievable, dude.
But those are all. I want to share all of those stories because they're all stories of courage, with the exception of Acoustic Kitty.
Yes.
All crazy stories that really shine light on different facets of what I feel it also means to be a veteran that always don't get talked about. It's really cool getting to share stories of female vets. It's cool to share stories of minority veterans, especially in the early years when like they were already, whether it's females, a minority, whoever, they're already getting shit on and still they wanted to serve their country despite the harassment and everything else that they faced. People coming to this country, becoming veterans, and then just the stories about other veterans. Like there's so much chaotic beauty to what it means to be a veteran. And the more that I grow and the more that I learn, I get prouder of it every year.
I agree with that. And I think for me, just to add to that, I think the reason that I get more proud of it is because the older I get, the more I realize and the more I accept that when I was a young veteran, just got out, I wanted to be that, you know, look at what I did. I went overseas 8 times and I'm super, you know what I mean? Never did that. So I was like, oh, did I really serve? You know what I mean?
Right.
And now I'm to the point where I'm like, I willingly made the choice to go if I got the call. A lot of people didn't do that. Right. And I still, like, I've talked about, I feel like I've like progressed over the course of this podcast of how I feel about, and I think I'm to the point now where it's like, I still served. So I think as like a message to everybody out there who is a veteran, who did not have any combat role, like myself included, who just, you still are a veteran. You still rate the title veteran. You still rate, because again, you put your life on the line. You have no idea when you would have got the call, if you would have got the call, where you were going to go, and you would have gone. And that
you did your job. You did what was asked of you.
Yes. And for that, I thank you, and everybody thanks you, and you should be proud of being a veteran. Even if you, like I said, even if you did not play with bombs and blow shit up. And yes, the times were different in the 40s, and like we were not at a world war. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
So not everyone who enlists in the military is going over to, you know what I mean, to combat. So I think just wear it with a badge of honor, and I think and embrace it, and just
be proud.
Yeah, be proud of it.
I think those are really good points, and I minimalized my service because for me, I served in the Army National Guard on my first tour. In the National Guard, there's always been stereotypical jokes and things, as there is with every branch. Mm-hmm. But like, because I didn't go fully active, I really minimized my time for a long time. Like, I just felt like I wasn't proud of what I did because I did it as a National Guardsman, technically, not an active Army or whatever. And it's like, it took a Marine named Dave Allen, who is the commandant, I believe, of our local Marine Corps League. An amazing man, wonderful man. I remember this conversation like it was yesterday because that's how important it was to me. He asked me about my service, and Dave and I have known each other for years now. We've worked together a lot. And Dave asked me about my service. I was like, I was just in the National Guard. And he stopped me. He said, no, you were in the National Guard. And I was like, oh, I get what you're saying. And he was just like, don't minimize it. You did what you did. You did your job. And I was like, not enough vets. There's a lot of vets that need to hear that, because we have all these vets that are out there now that are super famous for the shit that they've done, and they deserve all of it, you know, like, and then they're in the special operations community, and that's the creme de la creme. Like, that's the top of the top of the top. Like, those guys deserve every bit of admiration and stuff that they get. But there are a lot of veterans that just aren't that, and that's okay. That's okay to not be that dude. It's okay to not be Jocko or what's the Navy SEAL? David Goggins.
Yeah, or Chris Kyle.
And those guys are amazing, and learn about them and appreciate them. Yeah. But a lot of veterans aren't those guys.
Dude, it's like one in thousands. You know what I mean? Like,
especially when you get home. And when I got home in 2009, I also remember, like it was yesterday, one of the managers at my job, I was working at Best Buy at the time, asked me if I killed anybody. And like, the thing, in my opinion, with that question, when you ask a veteran, is like, okay, first of all, most vets I know that I believe have any sort of body count, don't seem like proud about it, don't want to talk about it. Like, they don't want to talk about it because why fucking would you? Yeah. So for that reason, if that's even a possibility when talking to a veteran, you probably shouldn't ask him that.
No.
But also, when you asked me that, now I feel like I have to judge my job as an infantry soldier on whether or not I took somebody's life. Now you're making me question what value my service has if I didn't. And that's not fair to me either. And I know that when a person asks that, I don't think they mean to make you feel bad, but it's almost impossible to not make somebody feel bad. When you're like, did you kill anybody? Like, fucking maybe, like, you know, I'm very, when people say thank you for my service, thank you for your service, and I'm always like, thank you for your support, and just leave it at that.
Yeah.
I got no issues with people doing that. Some people we've talked about get mad when you say Happy Veterans Day on Memorial Day, vice versa. I understand that, but even that doesn't bother me that much. No. But when it comes to asking a veteran, like, if they've ever killed somebody, I'm like, you got to stop that shit.
Yeah.
Like, don't do that.
Yeah, that's where you draw the line, I think. That's
And I feel like some of the vets that I met that were really kind of gung-ho, had all these crazy war stories. Some of those guys are full of shit also.
Sure.
So some guys are full of shit. Some guys tell stories and they're like, that's not what happened. And the military community is pretty small, and it's usually not that hard to call somebody out if they're lying about something.
Yeah.
Like when I was in Afghanistan, this was great with the DOD. We had somebody up with us who made it all the way to Afghanistan with us, with the Department of Defense. And he said that he was a medic. And we were doing a training class. And I was a medic at the time. And we were doing a training class. I don't remember what it was. It was like basic life-saving or something like that. And this guy's supposed to be a full-fledged medic. And he's asking questions that a paramedic should not be asking. And we're all like, yo, dude, what is this dude's deal? We found out that he lied on his application, his paperwork, CV, whatever, everything to get over here. Like, it was all a fucking lie. He immediately got sent back. Because you want to lie about something. You're going to say you're a medic, bro? And now you're going to be on a team, and they're like, this is the dude who's supposed to save my life if something happens.
Oh, my God,
dude. The fact that he got that far, he was in country with us before we found out. Like, it's crazy. But anyway, so there is a portion of the community that sucks. That's every community, every group of people. There's a small demographic that sucks. They lie, whatever, make shit up. You're going to have that too. But for the most part, like you said, yes, getting to understand that you can call yourself a veteran if you served your country, did not deploy, if you did whatever your job was, you still deserve the right to call yourself a veteran because you signed up and you were going to do whatever the hell was asked of you. Yeah. You know what I mean?
I think if you put the uniform on, again, served honorably,
right?
Then I think you deserve everything. And I've been thinking a lot about like the VA and like a lot of veterans, because of our like what's the word I'm looking for? Because of our
Worcestershire.
Yeah, Worcestershire sauce. Because like how we are, where we'd rather take care of people rather than ourselves. Mm-hmm. We push away like, oh, hey, the VA benefits aren't for me; they're for somebody else who deserves it. They're for you know what I'm saying?
Yes.
And in the end, that's actually hurting benefits because it's like if you don't use it, you lose it type of deal.
Yes.
So I feel like,
my understanding, yes.
I feel like we need to, as a veteran community, we need to start educating and letting people know that, like, hey, you earn that, you deserve it. Is there for veterans, dude. You don't understand. Like, yeah, for me, obviously, it helps out a lot because getting a job, obviously, with my eyes, it is very difficult, right? Mm-hmm. So obviously, it helps out. But there's people who are like, no, I don't deserve it. I don't need that.
Yeah.
Which it's like, yeah, but you do deserve it. You might not need it, but you do deserve it.
Well, and the thing of it is, when I talk to other vets about it, I'm not telling you to lie. I'm not telling you to do. I'm telling you to go in there and tell them if there is something wrong with you. Tell them what those things are.
Yeah.
Just be honest about it. Mm-hmm. If something happened to you during your time in service, you need to talk to a veteran service officer or something about it, because it might be something that's going to cause issues for you later in life. So why not get it checked out while you can? Because a lot of vets unfortunately wait too long, or then something happens to them and then their spouse has to do it, their widowed spouse has to do it, and that's very difficult. So, I mean, it's not about taking something that's not yours. It's about you sharing your story. And if there is something about your time in service that has affected you, well, guess what? You're entitled to something for it.
Yeah.
Whether that's free healthcare or a disability rating or a free hearing aids, whatever the hell it is, it's out there because you did your job. So, but the hardest part about that is it's ingrained in our soul, I feel like, to be selfless. We just read story after story of all of these selfless veterans. You know what I mean? And so to get out and then have to be selfish to do something for yourself, that's also very hard. Yeah. And you don't have the accountability. You don't have somebody next to you and somebody over you that are making sure that you're staying on point. You got to do it yourself. That's a lot of work, and it sucks sometimes. But that's why there's people out there to help. Like, that's why I'm thankful I got promoted fairly recently, to be the superintendent of the Veterans Assistance Commission of Kankakee County.
Congratulations.
Thank you, sir.
Very cool.
And that's why I love what I do, because we get to help veterans every day. You get to help their families, their kids, their spouses, whoever. Like, we get to help them because you've earned it. You've earned it.
Shout out to the VSO.
Yes, sir.
Woo woo.
So I hope that if you're listening to this, you are enjoying your Veterans Day, or you enjoyed your Veterans Day. Thank you for everybody out there for listening. Bradley, did you have anything else?
Can I share my good news?
Yes.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
I don't know numbers, but
you have to pull up the blanket, like real snug.
Real snug.
Yes. And then tell us.
Okay. Should I hold like this?
Mm-hmm. That's good.
Okay, guys. So I just want to say I've been doing 75 hard, which is like it's a weight loss challenge, if you will, but it's more of a lifestyle change for me. It's basically a list of things that you have to follow, workout, diet. Anyway, long story short, when I started, I was a 2X t-shirt. And I was in a 38 stretchy pants, so like probably 40, right? Mm-hmm. Today is day 72.
Wow.
Yes, sir. And I am in a large shirt, and I need a 34 pants with a belt.
Dude, that's a beautiful thing, man. That's awesome.
Thank you so much.
That's a lot of consistency, a lot of effort. How do you get through the days where you don't want to do it?
I have not had any of those days.
Hell yeah.
It feels way too good to not keep going.
And at this point, you form that habit.
Yeah, and I've been like eating clean, and like yesterday we went out, and I've been eating like a lot of fish and potatoes, and I saw sweet potatoes on the menu, and I got really excited, and I was like, oh, I'll have sweet potatoes, and they were like fried. And that was I had like 3 or 4 of them just to, because I was like, I ordered them, I'm gonna eat them, whatever.
Yeah.
And man, I was like, dude, no, thank you.
Yeah.
No, thank you.
That's impressive, man. That's very cool. And are you going to continue doing this after the 75th day?
Yeah, like I said, dude, it's a lifestyle change for me.
Very cool.
I don't plan on. I mean, I might cut because the workouts are. It's very time consuming.
Yeah.
It's 3 hours worth of working out ish.
Good
a
Lord.
day.
Yeah.
So it's like I'm going to cut back a little bit on that. Maybe on the weekends, just go for walks. Not, because I go to the gym 7 days a week.
Right.
It's a lot.
Yeah. And it's great as long as you don't get sidelined by an injury or something, which I hope obviously never happens. But I mean, it's a great habit to have.
Yeah. And, routine. I know last time I was doing this, we were doing the podcast and it felt good, but this time's different because it's more like cemented in, like ingrained.
Yeah.
And it just feels different. It feels stronger, more present, more mindful, more full. I love deeper, laugh harder, dude. It just,
you feel more genuine.
Yeah.
Genuinely you.
Yeah.
And you feel comfortable.
And I can be me. And like I said earlier before on the podcast, and I think on an earlier episode, I've never said it. But I love me now.
It's good.
Man.
Well, like, dude, I've asked people that before when I've worked with people, like, we're just talking about it. Like, how often do you tell yourself, like, you love yourself? And you say that, and it makes people feel weird.
Yeah.
Like, thinking about the idea of telling yourself you love yourself.
Yeah.
It makes people feel weird.
Yeah. I'm becoming very unapologetically myself.
That's good.
In many ways. I will go on walks and just sing.
Yeah.
And just be goofy and not care who sees me. I'll dance. I'll sing on my walks, dude.
Yeah.
And people probably know me and they're probably like, oh, there's that. I mean, I know people see me.
Yeah. You're the blind guy who walks around Mantino.
I am that guy.
Mm-hmm. That's a great thing. That's all. I mean, those are all good things. It's good to be unapologetically yourself.
Yeah.
Myself, I have too much social anxiety. Like, I'll be myself to a degree as long as I believe I'm being considerate enough. And if I'm not, I start getting anxious. I start getting super anxious. But other than that, I don't know.
I need to make a t-shirt. Live life like you're blind, right? Like nobody else is watching.
Live life like nobody's watching. And then it's a picture of you. Yeah. Live life like Brad's watching.
Yeah. And then
that's the shirt.
And then it's just me like,
live life like Brad's watching.
But like for real, like it's cool because like that's how I like to live my life. I live my life like nobody is watching. I have fun. I make my kids laugh. I don't care because I'm never gonna see these people again. Ha!
Got it. Nice.
I didn't even mean
self-burn. Very good.
but no, like for real.
Yeah.
Like we went to an outdoor mall.
Yeah.
In Michigan City over the weekend.
Yeah.
I was being goofy because when are these people ever going to see me again?
Right. And if it's at the sake, especially of like making your kids laugh, you know what I mean? Well, or just to have a good moment, good memory with your family.
Yeah.
That is a beautiful thing that you got to take advantage of if you can.
Just
I love that.
A lot of positive vibes lately coming from me. My light is definitely been growing and ready to be shared.
That's good, man. Yeah. I'm very happy for you and you deserve to be happy.
Thank you.
Thank you for sharing that.
Sure.
And other than that, anything else about Veterans Day?
Oh, right.
Happy Veterans Day.
Yeah, happy Veterans Day to you.
Yeah, man.
And happy Veterans Day to everybody out there listening.
Fuck yeah.
Our veterans. And go get your free beer from Applebee's.
They don't do free beer. Could you imagine? Free chicken penne pasta. Free chicken penne pasta.
I think Beat-Ups does like 6 wings too.
Nice.
Yeah.
I don't know. Like I said, I don't know. It's always nice. It's just nice to be recognized regardless of what it is. Just to go anywhere and know that they have done something within their organization to try to show appreciation to the veteran community in that act in and of itself is always just so appreciated. So
I agree.
But until next time, thank you again for listening to the 172nd best mental health podcast in Cambodia. We hope you like, share, subscribe. If you thought that this was pretty good, leave us a review. If you have any thoughts, ideas for new episodes, or any thoughts on current episodes, feel free to send us a message. Go to our website, projectheadspaceandtiming.org, Facebook page, the I'm F.I.N.E podcast. And until next time, I hope that we helped you go from being freaked out, insecure, neurotic, and emotional to truly being fine about echoing the honor Veterans Day.